Well, thank you, Rita. Thank you for inviting me back here. I like Lennox. They serve a purpose. I took my beginning computer class here, and you've got a lot of good facilities, and you do a lot of good. And so I'm very glad to return here to speak about Life Begins at 80. I'm going to talk about Life Begins at 80, but don't wait. And it begins with a library card. And also I'm talking about how to stay out of a nursing home and how to develop your mind and body. And none of us want to be in a nursing home, and we want to be healthy. And so I also talk about heart cancer and stroke are reversible, and also I talk about there's about 40 conditions that I've done book reports on, and talking to my doctor, who's been kind of my advisor, he says, don't speak about reversible without saying treatable, because a lot of conditions that I talk about that I say are reversible are also treatable. So last time I was here, I wanted to play George Burns, and I tried to do some funny talk about married life, but talking about the problems of married life, these aren't funny, except the one that I use that my wife and I have been married 59 years, and so I qualify to teach a course on how to live with stress and avoid burnout. Anyone who's been married 59 years should know how to live with stress and avoid burnout. And so they say, well, what about your wife? Well, those who know my wife say the best thing about me is my wife. So now I'd like to tell you how I got here and why I am here. How I got here started when I was 80 years old. My wife made a birthday party for me, and she invited about 90 people came to my birthday party, which was a very happy day for me. And my daughter came from Santa Monica. She's a psychotherapist, and she works for the Gay and Lesbian Clinic in Hollywood. And she came to celebrate my birthday and visit with her mother and father. And she said, Dad, how are you doing? And I said, well, I'm not doing too well. I'm very unhappy in my work. I've been in health insurance for over 40 years, and now the HMOs have come in. They tell me what to do. They tell the doctors what to do. They tell the patients what to do. It's not fun anymore. I'm not creative. So she said, Dad, what you should do is start reading. So I said, well, okay, what should I read? She said, well, go to the library and get some books about Scott Peck and John Bradshaw and read those books. So I went to the library and got a library card, which I haven't had for about 50 or 60 years. And I asked about books for Scott Peck and John Bradshaw, and the librarian took me over to a wall of books, and she picked out these books, Scott Peck and John Bradshaw, and the section of these books was psychology. So I was taking books out of the psychology section. I didn't know what I was starting, but I took the books home and took them home and read them, and I liked them. And I came back every week and took more books. And so for 2 years, I read psychology books. I read about 2 books a week. And in a period of about 2 years, I read about 200 books. And then I heard about Deepak Chopra. And I went to the librarian and said, have you any books about Deepak Chopra? And sure enough, she took me to a section where she gave me the book by Deepak Chopra, and that was in the health section. So I started to read these books, and I'm reading books in the health section, about 2 a week, and this goes on for another year. Now I'm 83 years old, and I read about 300 books, and my friend at the health club, Jeff Sugarman, who's a CEO for a publishing company, said, Abe, why don't you write? So I wrote an article for the Star Tribune, which they published, and it gave me a lot of feedback. I heard from a lot of people, and Bruce Dayton read my article, and he talked to his wife, Ruth, who owns the Marsh Health Club, and he said, Ruth, get a hold of Abe. He is talking on mind and body development, and you're teaching that here in your health club. Get a hold of him. So she called me and said she'd like to use some of my material in her newsletter, and I said, well, I'll come and I'll speak to your group. So I did. I gave my first talk at the Marsh Health Club on Life Begins at 80, but don't wait. And that was my start. And from then I've been invited to do other talks around this area. And I've given about 12 talks on my subject. And they've been very well received. And so that's how I qualify to be here. I've had 3 years of reading. I've given 12 talks. I've written an article. So that's how I qualify. Talking to my friend, the doctor who I go fishing with. By the way, we canceled our fishing trip this afternoon. We were supposed to go ice fishing because of the weather. And he said, sometimes I'm invited to go to court to help somebody collect on a health or accident case, and I'm there representing them against the insurance company, and the defending lawyer for the insurance company will say curriculum vitae in Latin, meaning how do you qualify? And so I say to you, curriculum vitae, I qualify to speak to you on these subjects because of my background. And especially that I'm not a PhD, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an author, I'm a person who had trouble getting out of high school. So still, because of what I've done, I qualify to speak to you. Also, I'd like to tell you why I am here. The reason I am here is that I had a lot of medical problems, which I studied in these books. I had cancer, and I had a stroke, and I had high blood pressure, and I was overweight, and I had some kind of arthritis, and I had chronic leukemia. And these books taught me what to do. They taught me to go on a low-fat diet, exercise, think right, and so I've been helped, and that's why I'm here. I've been helped, so now my mission in life is to help others. And I will start out by talking about, like I said before, about staying out of a nursing home, and also that we all want to grow old, but we want to be healthy. It's no fun growing old and not being healthy, and this is what I'm talking about. And the things that'll keep you out of a nursing home, number one is your eating habits, nutrition. Like the books say, go on a low-fat diet, eat right, fruits and vegetables. Also, there's a side effect of drugs. All drugs have side effects. So even aspirin, if you take too many, they'll affect you. And from my own experience, I had chemo, and as a result of the chemo, I got chronic leukemia, and that's a side effect of drugs. And also alcohol, too much alcohol will shorten your life and put you in a nursing home, and tobacco, and also that you need water. Our body is made of water, and there's dehydration. A lot of people are dehydrated. They don't drink enough water. The books say drink 8 glasses of water a day. Well, I can't do 8, but I do 4, and that seems to do the job. And then there's depression. Don't get into depression. Anxiety, fears, worries, that can make you grow old. Some of this material I'm talking about came from a book that Dare to Live to Be 100. So not only can you stay out of a nursing home, but you can stay healthy and live longer. And the other thing is activity, inactivity, to be doing things, coming to Lennox and participating. And the other thing that will help you will be love everybody. Love is a great medication. And you can't get that in a pill. It doesn't come in Tylenol. And that's a good stroke. And the other one is to help somebody. That's why I'm here. I'm trying to help somebody. And so that's another thing that will help you be healthy and stay out of a nursing home. Now, there are 4 kinds of health. There's physical health, there's mental health, there's social health, and there's spiritual health. Now, the physical health, exercise, I work out 3 days a week. You have exercise programs here. And there's mental health, read good books. And then there's social health, coming here. This is a good place for social life. And spiritual health. Well, I've been a little weak on the spiritual health, but the books say develop your mind and your body and your soul. Well, I've developed my mind and my body, and I'm here to develop my soul to try to help people. And we have 3 ages. We have our numerical age, our chronological age. I was born in 1913, so I'm 85 years old. That's my numerical age. Now, we also have a biological age. How old is your body? Well, my body's not 85 years old. I think my body is younger than 85. And I can tell by the way I work out with some of the fellas in the health club. And the other one is your psychological age. How old do you think you are? Well, think you're pretty young. I do. I think I'm pretty young. And the other thing I would like to talk about is a big problem that we have in this country is unhappily married people. This is quite a big problem in the United States, and we got not too many numbers to prove what I'm talking about, except that we know that 5 out of 10 marriages end up in divorce. Then also, and when I try to do some humor when I was here last time, I talked about there was 10 types of marriages, and I talked about number 6 marriage, which was an agricultural marriage. She wanted him under the ground, and he wanted her under the ground. And then also I talked about a stay and pay marriage, where why get a divorce, stay and pay? You need a place to live, so stay and pay. She has to cook for 1, cook for 2. And so you add this together with the 5 out of 10 that divorce, and those that are living together that are unhappy, we've got a problem in this country. There's too much of it going. Till death do us part does not work anymore. The way they split and with the problems they have, we need help. And so what happens, the books say, we have dysfunctional families and mystified children. I kind of simplify it. I say we have mixed up kids and mixed up families. And so this comes from all these problems. Now, I've been in the health insurance for over 40 years, and I've seen where they've taken maternity and they made it an illness. Maternity is an illness, and you get the same benefits for a pregnant woman as if she was sick. And our congressman passed this, a federal law, that maternity is an illness, and they did the same thing with alcohol. Alcohol is a disease, and you're entitled, if you're a heavy drinker, you end up with 30 days of therapy, and these are laws. Now, I'm anticipating when these congressmen get away from this Clinton problem, they may want to make unhappily married people a condition for treatment, because there's so much of it around, and that's why we don't have no records, because nobody goes to the hospital like they do for cancer, stroke, and heart. They are admitted and they have some records. We don't have records on the problems that we have with people who are unhappily married. And how does it affect us as seniors? We have children and we have grandchildren, and so we're part of it. And their problem becomes our problem. Now, how I got on this subject from the books. There are so many books that are speaking about these problems. There's The first book I read was John Gray wrote Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And that book is full of the differences. Men and women are different, and how do you react, and how do you talk to each other, and how do you help, how do you relate to each other so you can have a happy marriage. And then there's books written by Hendricks. Hendricks wrote a book, how to get the happiness you want out of life. And then there's books by Schnarch. Schnarch wrote books about passionate marriage, and the library is full of books about the problems of married life. And so I don't know what the future is going to be, but there seems to be a trend from the books that I'm seeing that people are looking into these things. They're trying to learn how to adjust and get along together. I hope so. And that brings me to the mission of our family. We have family problems. There's books written about the mission of our family. How do we raise our children? And they say teach them love and hope and faith, and teach them how to be independent and interdependent so that they serve a purpose in society. And what gets me is I like the part about to teach your children to be independent, because if you don't teach your children to be independent, you have to help them, and then that's your problem, and then it becomes their problem, and neither one of you gain if you don't teach your child to be independent. In my case, the books tell me I'm an enabler. I'm doing things for my child that I shouldn't be doing, that my child should be doing for herself. And so she should have been taught to be independent. And I came up with the phrase, the parent plan. And my friends say, what's the parent plan? Well, I said, the parent plan is you buy them a car, you pay their rent, you pay their car insurance, pay their health insurance, you know what I mean? And so that's the parent plan. They say, well, I didn't know you had a name for it, but I know all about the parent plan. So these are things that we have to consider about teaching our children to be independent and interdependent, because to get along with other people, and that's a problem of married life, that these people aren't getting along too well together. And so that brings me to my topic about the brain. I've studied some books about the brain, which is a lifelong study, and I'm just going to cover some highlights about the brain. The brain is a very wonderful organ in our body, and they say we have a left side and a right side, and the left side is for maybe academic, and the other side might be artistic, but we have a brain that's intelligent, and our brain has millions of neurons, and the neurons tell you what to do. If you go like this or go like that, that comes from your neurons, and this is how the brain works. Some say there's 3 parts of the brain, but the common one is a left side and a right side. And the brain is intelligent, and we have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind. The conscious mind is your teacher. The conscious mind teaches you how to ride a bicycle, swim, drive a car, and then you do things unconsciously. And that's what we do. We go through life doing things unconsciously. So knowing this, I had a talk with my conscious mind. They said, dear conscious mind, I want to have a talk with you. What do you want to talk about? Well, this is what I want you to do. You're the teacher. You teach me right from wrong, good for bad. Teach me how to do right and teach me how to do good, so then I'll go through life doing things unconsciously. So I hope the program is working. Self-esteem. A lot of people feel that they're not as good as everybody else. Everybody's got it better than them. And this is very common among people. They have low esteem. They don't have high esteem. Some may call it shame or guilt, but the big word that covers all these things is esteem. They don't feel they're important. And I understand, because when I was in high school, I had a low IQ. And that made me feel I'm not very bright, had a low IQ. And then I failed my college entrance exam. And now I can't go to college. I'm not going to be no doctor, no lawyer. So I went through life with low esteem. Of course, I went to work and made a living, didn't do too poorly, but I didn't have any high esteem until I read a book in the library by David Goleman, Goleman. And he wrote a book about emotional intelligence. And in this book, I found that I was intelligent, because there's about 20 different kinds of intelligence, and I didn't have the intelligence that would help me through school, what they call academic intelligence. I had high esteem, and so I wrote myself a song that I am trying to teach people to sing. And my wife says, don't sing your song, but I do, and I've done it. And here's the way it goes. I get up in the morning, I look in the mirror, and I sing my song. I sing, I love me, I'm wild about myself, I'm kind, I'm good, just like a person should be, that's me, and I'm good looking too. So that gives me high esteem. And if you practice my song, I'm sure it'll do the same for you. The other thing I'd like to talk about is that whatever your problems are, they're not money. And the reason I say that, I've given about 12 talks to people who have a food, shelter, and clothing. They're getting by, and money is not really a problem. I read the book, The Art of Virtue by Ben Franklin, and he makes a big issue of that in his book, that as long as you're making a living, you shouldn't have no problems. But you take a man who's working and he's got 5 children, he's making a living, they all learn how to get by, and they do get by unless the man makes a lot of money. If there's a lot of money, then there's a problem. And so that is pretty thing. That's the thing that you have to understand, that if you've got problems, and I have problems, and you have problems, we all have problems, but they're mostly mental and emotional. They're not money. I'm not in a high income bracket, and I know we have problems. I do have problems with my children, and so those are the problems that we got to overcome, is emotional and mental problems. Now we have Patch Adams, our new hero. Patch Adams, this doctor out east who is treating people, and he's treating people with laughter. There's books in the library like Norman Cousins' Anatomy of an Illness, and Patch Adams is doing a wonderful job of treating people by making them laugh. And now there's movie and books, and he'll make enough money maybe to build another hospital or add to his hospital. That's alternative medicine, and that's a good way to go. But what I thought was missing in these articles that I read about Patch Adams is he wasn't singing my song. My song is, look within. What can you do to develop your mind and body? You don't need the medication. Don't look to the doctor. Don't look to the government. Look to yourself. And that's my song that I'm singing. Look within, develop yourself, develop your mind and body. Now, I'd also like to talk about win-win. Everybody wants to win. In the USA, they say that gambling amounts to $535 billion. We gamble $535 billion a year. Now, I'll take Minnesota. We've got 18 casinos. We've got a lottery. We've got pull tabs. We've got bingo. I say Minnesota is a ship of fools. You can't win. All those casinos, Las Vegas and those in Minnesota, they weren't built on winners. Going to the casino is not developing your mind and body. So if you want to win, the good way to win is with a library card. You go to the library and get the card and read some books. I love my library card. Now, my wife is watching TV about a month ago, and she says, come and watch this program. There was three persons, Carter and Hugh Downs and Billy Graham. They all wrote books about old age, which is very good to know, because when you go to the library, there aren't many books written for seniors. Even the authors will tell you most books are written for people under 50. So I did watch that program. And the reason I watched it, because my wife called me, because I don't watch TV too much. I don't want to develop a TV mind. I'd rather read some books, because I was reading a book when she said, come and see the program. So I enjoyed that program. But again, what was missing is they talked about their books, which maybe I will read in time, but what was missing is my song that I'm singing is, look within yourself, develop your mind and body. What can you do to help yourself? And so I'm trying to get together an orchestra that will sing my song. Now I would like to make some closing remarks. My talk has been mostly like alternative medicine, and there's another way of getting the job done by looking within yourself and eating right and exercising. And I like to quote our President Kennedy, who said, it's not what your country will do for you, it's what you will do for your country. And as I say the same thing here in my talk, is not what the doctors can do for you, not what the medication can do for you, what can the government do for you, but what can you do for yourself? That is a way to improve your life. Now, my friend said, I'll meet you in a bar, have a drink, and I'll see you later. I said, so I went in the bar and I ordered a Coke, and my old friend John was there, who I used to drink with, and he said, Abe, I understand this is your Jewish holidays. I said, yeah. He said, what do you call them? I said, well, we call them Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. He said, well, what are they? I said, well, they're what we call our high holidays, and we go to the synagogue and pray. He said, what do you pray? I said, well, we ask for forgiveness, and if we hurt anybody, we want to forgive them. And he said, so how long do you pray? I said, well, services are about 3.5 hours. He said, you mean to tell me you go to the synagogue and you pray for 3.5 hours for forgiveness? He said, yeah. He said, you can't do it in 3.5 hours. So the same with my talk here. You can't do it in 3.5 hours. And the other problem is that nobody wants to change. The only one who wants to change is a wet baby. And I have some friends that I talk to. I talked to my friend Jake. I said, Jake, you've got these medical problems, and here's what you should do. He said, Abe, I'm 82 years old. I got this far without you. Who the heck needs you? And then I got my brother-in-law, Max. I talked to my brother-in-law, Max. Max says, Abe, I'm 87 years old. If I do everything that you told me to do, I'd still be 87 years old. So this is the problem that I feel that I'm running into in my talks. People don't want to change. They believe in nature. They don't believe in nurture. They believe the Lord has given, the Lord has taken, and that's it. There's nothing I can do about it. And so that's the problem. But there is nurture. There are things you can do, and that's what I'm talking about. And finally, if you will do what I say and eat right, and exercise, think right, you'll be in good health. And you'll go to your doctor for a checkup once a year, and he'll come into the examining room, and you look at the doctor and say to the doctor, and how are you today? Because he may need help, and he may need a doctor, and you're going to be in good health. So I thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Yes? I broke my leg, and I got a piece of steel in here when I was 84, and I got 2 screws, and I was in a hospital 8 days, and I wouldn't even take Tylenol. I took no medication. So now I'm talking to my doctor, who's my fishing partner and friend, and I say, Markle, what about that? He said, what you should say is that don't take medication that isn't needed. But the drug houses will spend $100 million to promote a drug like Tylenol. And now garlic is good for you, but they won't spend a dime on telling you that garlic's good for you. And so what I have found that medication has side effects. Now where did I got these from these books that I'm reading. And everybody's on medication. You come to the doctor and sure, I will give you a prescription, and then we'll come back, well, we'll try something else. And my wife has high cholesterol, and she's on all kinds of medication. Now, I'm telling her diet and exercise. Well, your body it wants to be healthy. You've got a gallbladder, a kidney, a heart, and your body can manufacture the drugs you need. So when I know you're shaking your head, and you're not. Yeah, well, so I have to alter. All I'm saying here now is my doctor's telling me, don't take unnecessary medicine. But I had all these conditions. I had cancer, and I had chemo, and I had a stroke. I had a bad liver, and now I'm on no medication. So if it can happen to me, it can happen to others. Well, thinking and exercise, there's a lot to it. Like I said about, you can't do this in 3.5 hours. You've got to eat right, develop your mind and body, your thinking. Don't worry. You may have things that you worry about and things like that. Well, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not diagnosing your condition, but medications are there's too much on the market. I know, but that's right. Well, like I say, I'm on no medication, and I walk my talk, and if it can happen to me, maybe it can happen to you, maybe not. In that book that I mentioned, of The Diagnosis of an Illness by Norman Cousins, he said, take me out of this hospital and put me in a room where I can laugh and give me movies. And so, that's a dangerous ground I'm walking on, I know. And there are people who need medicine. My doctor is a friend of mine, and all he does is prescribe medicine. So I kid him. I said, Doc, when are you going to get away from all this stuff? Why don't you use some alternative medicine? Why don't you teach these people how to eat right and think right and exercise? They're not into the emotional and mental parts of living. So that's a problem. And my doctor knows it. He agrees. He went to one of my talks that I gave at the Marsh Hill Club, and he got up there after I got there, and he said, I know Abe for all these years, and he's got a good message that he's delivering. Medication is a big thing, but they do have side effects. And I know they gave me chemo, and it killed my white blood cells. And, yeah, I had chemo, and I got chronic leukemia, and so now I'm not on no medication. I've been written up in a lot of magazines, and I've been on TV and about pickle making, and that's been a hobby of mine. The kosher pickles, saltwater pickles. Yeah, they're good. I don't use vinegar. I use salt water for preservative, and it's a cold pack, but it has flavor. And when it comes to pickles, I say vinegar is a wonderful preservative, but it retards the flavor, and don't eat a retarded pickle. So I am a famous pickle maker. Well, I did teach the Lincoln Dill how to make them, and my label's been out there, the Maven, and they've sold them, and I've taught them how to make them. You know, at the Lincoln Hill. So
How about the Legion? You take them down there?
I take her to the Legion too. Oh, thank you.